Well, good evening, everyone, or good morning or good afternoon, depending on when you view this concert from Common Ground on the Hill at the Folklife Center for Mid-Maryland here on the campus of McDaniel College in Westminster, Maryland. We have a wonderful concert lined up for you this evening, representing instructors who have been teaching at Common Ground on the Hill throughout Traditions Week 3. Our first performer is Rod McDonald. Let me tell you a little bit about Rod. Rod was a 20-year headliner in Greenwich Village clubs and concerts with 21 songs in the Smithsonian Collection of American Music and is a co-founder of the Greenwich Village Folk Festival. His 12 CDs include such songs as American Jerusalem, A Sailor's Prayer, White Buffalo, and Every Living Thing, recorded by Sean Colvin, Dave Van Rock, Jonathan Edwards, Garnet Rogers, Four Bitchin' Babes, Joe Jenks, and other artists. Living in South Florida since 1995, he was named one of the 10 greatest South Florida folk singers of all time by New Times. As a teacher, he began songwriting for self-expression at the New York Open Center and here at Common Ground on the Hill. And since 2006 has been Music Americana instructor in Florida Atlantic University's Osher LLS program, where he was named distinguished faculty member in 2012. Here, this year, Rod is teaching performance and songwriting. We're very excited to have him with us, and I can't wait to see what he has in store for us. Make welcome Rod McDonald.
Hi, everybody. Hi to Walt, Maria, Matt, everybody at Common Ground on the Hill. Sorry I can't be with you. I have very slow internet here where I'm on holiday with my family. But a community group in town has let me use an office to teach my Common Ground classes and also for live concerts on Facebook on Sunday nights. So here are a couple songs from this past Sunday night's concert. I hope you enjoy them. Thank you. How this will end. Somebody shot a hole in the Bible. Somebody shot a hole in the Bible. They blew it apart from the back. They must have snuck up behind it to leave it in pieces like that. Now whenever you try to read it, you gotta stop where the words fall apart. Somebody shot a hole in the Bible. I don't even know where to start. Now when you reach for the good book to tell you how things got to be, you pass the begetting and the killing, and the soldiers all drown in the sea. Then you get to the part where they tell you everything everybody has to do. Somebody shot a hole in the Bible. Right there you can see right through. Now he was just walking down the sidewalk, thinking there was no one around, when out of the cloud came the message, behold, I'm standing my ground. Who knows why the shots were first fired? Who knows how the gun was at hand? Somebody shot a hole in the Bible. Please don't let it happen again.
drops of rain followed, till the banks on Wall Street overflowed. When it came time for white doves to come flying, and the sun to come shining again, somebody shot a hole in the Bible. There's no telling how this will end. Somebody shot a hole in the Bible. There's no telling how this will end. In the next generation to come down the line, I believe it was the year 2039, they asked, "Hey Mom, what was the pandemic? I've been hearing about it in school, and I bet it was something you'd never want to do again." And Mom sat down and shook her head and said with a grin, "Ah, the pandemic, wasn't that a time?" "Well," said Mom, "I was just in my teens. Your daddy was trying to get in my jeans. We couldn't travel, so we married on Zoom. The preacher in Maine, our parents back home. Baked our own cake, had colored balloons. Streamed the first kiss, went on our honeymoon without leaving the room. Yeah, the pandemic, wasn't that a time?" "Yeah," said Mom, "and who could forget? The numbers kept climbing and no one protected their faces till thousands were gasping for air, and businesses shutting down everywhere. And speaking of time, every now and then you'd hear the news of a trusted friend you knew you'd never see again. There was no toilet paper on the shelf. Nobody could work. We kept to ourselves, took walks in the moonlight when the curfew was done, and I never felt closer to anyone. And there was this guy, it was like a big joke, said nobody's dying, it's just a hoax. But he was no friend of mine. Yeah, the pandemic, wasn't that a time? It was a time to reflect, said Mom. We had 600 channels in the living room. But it's amazing to me to remember today there was never anything on anyway. Except for live concerts, there were these guys I know who put on every Sunday with a brand new show. And somehow it eased my mind. Yeah, the pandemic, wasn't that a time? And in the midst of it all, people took to the streets when an unarmed black man killed by police was becoming too normal. And for the first time, the cops were made to pay for the crime. And speaking of crime, there were these women and men thought they would overturn the government. Well, they ended up doing time. Now you knew it was coming to an end, and soon, when you turn on the news and every afternoon, there was a shooting in a mall or a store. So many thoughts and prayers you couldn't take anymore. It was easier to buy a gun than to vote. We had to dig deep to keep the ship afloat for the next generation to come down the line. That's what Mama said in 2039. Yeah, the pandemic, wasn't that a time? pandemic. Wasn't that a time?
Thank you, Rod McDonald. Pandemic, isn't that a time? What a year. What a year and a half it's been for so many, and it still rages on. We are living vaccinated for the most part, but there are people, I just read today, 2% of the people of Africa are vaccinated. So I'm sure there are a number of songs waiting to be written, and we hope that the need for writing that song will go away. But thank you for painting that picture for us, Rob. And everybody be sure to tune in to the Greenwich Village Folk Festival online on Facebook. It happens August 2nd, and I'm playing in it for the first time. I'm excited to be in Greenwich Village while I'll be in North Carolina. It's a magic world, folks. People think about Common Ground on the Hill as being music, and some people think of it as being art. And it is both of those things, but it's also the spoken word, and it's also film. We've had a wonderful film curriculum for a number of years here. And returning to us once again is Michal R Faulkner. He's an award-winning independent filmmaker, and he is excited to be back with us this year for a new exploration of creating community through the arts. After growing up riding horses and singing in choirs in rural Michigan, he moved to Baltimore and fell in love with the city while working as a production assistant on John Waters films. Wow, that must have been fun. And later as a location scout and manager for HBO's The Wire. His credits as an independent producer-director include the Tuvan music travelogue Shuday, which means let's go, John and James, music video and concert piece. And recent projects include Lost Kings, a micro-episodic drama set in Baltimore, and a short documentary, As We Are, a story that shines a light on the power of music to connect autistic children with their community. He was a producer on the film What the Wind Carries, featured at the Equal Justice Initiatives Museum in Montgomery, Alabama. Michael's currently on location scouting for a new teen basketball drama, Swagger. Michal continues to implement his interests in photography, music, and performance, telling unique and untold stories that explore and make testaments to social justice, the arts, and the awakening of new perspectives. And could we use some new perspectives? Michael's teaching the course Finding Common Ground Through Cinema and the Arts. We're awfully lucky to have him with us. Make welcome Michal R Faulkner.
Thank you, Walt. That very nice introduction. It's great to be here with everybody. It's an honor to be with such such a great group of accomplished and talented people. I want to play a clip from you, an excerpt from a film I made called Shuday, which means let's go, as Walt was saying, in Tuvan. Let's see, I want to set this clip up for you. It's a feature documentary, but it features a lot of musical selections. And the story was filmed in 2012. It was I was following a beatbox percussionist from Baltimore named Shodake, and I had the opportunity to document his experiences and adventures when he was invited to a cultural music festival in Siberia, in particular in the Republic of Tuva. And he was one of several musicians invited from around the world to do collaborations with traditional Tuvan music, and to also just share his music. This particular segment takes place near the beginning of our trip. And the musicians are starting to get to know each other, and they are sharing music with each other and practicing for a big concert that's going to be a birthday celebration for their teacher. And while they were doing that, everybody looked around and said, you know, why are we in this office, this studio space? Let's go out in nature where we really belong. The tuba music's very closely connected with nature. And so we got on a bus and we went out, and the result is this segment of the movie. It's a collaboration between several musicians: Annie Lynch, Shoda Kay, Garth Stevenson, Ugulza, and Andre Mongush. And I just want to say that it was recorded live. This is not lip synced. It's all recorded live. And thank you very much for watching.
I'm going down to that place, going down by the riverside where I see my face in the water, and the tall grass grows where the river overflows, where the rain falls heavy on that place. I see my face in the water. Some days I get lost out there, where the river only takes water it's handed. So I'm gonna run down to that place where I can find my own face in the water.
Thank you, Michael Faulkner. That was really something, and that took place in Tuva.
Yes, yes, and that's in basically the center of Asia, in Siberia,
Wow.
a little bit above Mongolia. Mhm.
And the people who we saw playing were from where?
And so you had Tuvan musicians joined with American musicians.
Mhm. With the Tuvan throat singing, which is so
Yes,
powerful and mesmerizing, and for us, strange.
yes, yeah. It was Annie Lynch's song, but that they had learned even through the language barrier, and they were adding their own stylings in as well.
That's beautiful. Beautiful to see those commonalities taking place. They must have had a fun time doing that. They look like they're enjoying themselves.
Yeah, I think so. I think lifelong friendships have been formed there in that process.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you very much.
if we get out of the way of the youth of the world, we just might get through all this, right?
I think
Thank
we
you so much, Michael. We
Yeah.
appreciate you being with us. I hope you can be with us again next year.
Yeah, it would be my pleasure. It's been a pleasure, Walt. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Our next performer is going to play some instruments that I think will sort of astound you. Mary Lynn Mica earned a bachelor's degree in music education from University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and a master's degree in music education from the Eastman School of Music. In 2012, she discovered a passion for playing the hammered dulcimer. She now teaches over 100 hammered dulcimer students privately and on FaceTime throughout the country and Australia. So think of that. Since 2012, she is, now has 100 students. Amazing. Performances and teaching appearances include the Everett Fun Fest, the National Cathedral, the Black Mountain Festival, the Poconos Dulcimer Festival, the North Georgia Foothills Dulcimer Association, Kentucky Music Week, and the Sandbridge Dulcimer Retreat, not to mention Common Ground on the Hill. Mary Lynn has performed with the Durham Symphony for 20 years and served as a principal horn for the past 5 years. So she obviously is a musician beyond or in addition to the hammer dulcimer. She's teaching beginning and beginning intermediate hammer dulcimer here at Traditions Weeks. Make welcome on the hammer dulcimer, Mary Lynn Mica.
I'm Mary Lynn Michal. Common Ground on the Hill holds a very special place in my heart as I've attended as a student there many years. I've studied hammer dulcimer and more recently beginning fiddle. I've had the privilege of being on faculty the last 2 years. This week I had a wonderful class of 7 advanced beginner hammer dulcimer players. We had a wonderful week. I've just relocated to Middletown, Maryland. It's always nice to find another hammer dulcimer player in the area. I've been very blessed and fortunate to study with Ken Kolodner. He needs no introduction, I'm sure. He leads a workshop in Sandbridge Beach, Virginia, and it's always a nostalgic time at the very end of the week and everybody's packing up their dulcimers and you agree to play one last tune. We're going to start our set off with Sandbridge Lullaby, and it's that last feeling, that last tune after you've had a great workshop. Hope you enjoy it.
Thanks, everybody. Keep it down out there. So we're going to finish off with a tune that I learned not long ago and taught this past Sandbridge, a tune called Promenade de Monaco, and it comes from this great fiddler named Andre Brunet. Neither of us speak French. In any case, he's a great fiddler. He's played in all sorts of great bands in Quebec. Wonderful player, and he gave us permission to play his wonderful tune. So here we go. Ready? Meet Jane Chalmers here. One.
Thanks so much for joining me,
Thank
Ben.
you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mary Lynn Michal, along with Ken Kolodner. Thanks so much. That was some fine hammered Dulcimer playing, and we're very happy that you've moved to Maryland. That's wonderful. Relocated to Maryland. That's great to have another hammered Dulcimer aficionado here in our community. It's great, and thank you so much for teaching with us this summer. Our next performer is a folk singer and multi-instrumentalist. She hails from rural Maine, where she grew up steeped in community and church music. After a stint at Oberlin College, which many of you know is a great music school along with everything else, where she was active in the student folk music club, she got her first ukulele in the late 1970s, soon followed by her first Marxophone, a gift from a flea market dealer. Enraptured by the potential of these and other vintage fretless zithers, a family of instruments which includes the autoharp, she has been collecting, researching, and playing them ever since. Katherine is teaching Autoharpo Marx, History of Zithers at Common Ground on the Hill, all the way from Maine. Make welcome, Katherine Rhoda.
I'd like to introduce you to the Marxophone. It's a play-by-number instrument that used to be sold door to door, was manufactured in Hoboken, New Jersey, invented by Henry C. Marx, patented by him, I believe, in 1912. It has a bunch of open chords here, and it has a keyboard arrangement here. Now you're hearing some repeated sounds. That is happening because each key has a spring steel extension with a weight on the end that bounces. It's also a lot of fun to pluck on it, although that's not what Henry C. had in mind. This instrument is the Lithuanian kanklis. It's the Lithuanian version of the Baltic psaltery, an instrument type that's found throughout the Baltic region. Each nation has its own name. I have the kanklis on loan from a Lithuanian folk music group I'm involved with in Boston, Sadauto, the Boston Lithuanian Ethnographic Ensemble. With one hand, I'm damping the strings that don't belong in the chord, and the other hand is doing strumming and a little bit of plucking. This one is a love song. There's a field, there's a pine grove, there's a tavern in that grove, there's a tavern keeper, there's a tavern keeper's daughter, and you can imagine the rest. So it's a courting song.
Wow. Some interesting instruments, and she got beautiful, beautiful tones out of those instruments. Can you imagine tuning them? For those of you who are sort of beginning out on guitar or mandolin and Imagine all that tuning that you do and how difficult it is. Try tuning one of those. Tune a Marxophone. Take the day to do it. Thank you very much for being with us, Katherine, all the way from Maine, and we look forward to seeing you in person someday. Our next performer is a storyteller. And Sheila Arnold has been performing since she was 8 years old. She lives in Hampton, Virginia, and presents storytelling programs, historic character presentations, Christian monologues, professional development for educators, and inspirational, motivational speaking for schools, churches, and organizations throughout the U.S. Ms. Sheila, as she is finally called, has been performing full-time and touring nationally since 2003. She was selected as a 2019 through 20 Mount Vernon Research Fellow and as an artist in residence at Hunoke Artist Colony in Maine. Sheila is teaching a collection of storytelling classes at Traditions Weeks, including Reimagine the World, Dilemma Stories to Enhance Problem Solving. It's wonderful to have Sheila back with us again this summer. She has become a mainstay of our storytelling staff. Make welcome from Hampton, Virginia, Sheila Arnold.
All right, let's try that with speaking so you can hear me. Good evening, everybody. It really is so good to be here. And I just loved listening to Katherine. That was just amazing. I could not, just the music that we have around us and surrounding us in artists, Common Ground is just amazing. And I get to come before two people I love. So that's the Morrisons. I can't wait to see them in just a minute. So I'll try to get through this really quickly so I can see the people that I enjoy seeing. This story is a remake of an older story, an old story in a little bit of a different way. Patricia Patrick Wilson was called Pat Pat for short. She was given Patrick as her paternal grandfather's name, became her middle name, but Pat Pat fit her just right. Pat Pat was always tallest in her classrooms, and she was a slender, even skinny kind of girl. It was her grandmother that raised her. Her parents, both father and mother, had taken to learning to like the substance of opioid a whole lot more than having a child. And so her paternal grandmother took good care of her. And after her grandfather died, it was just the two of them. Pat Pat was a quiet girl. She's one of those children that could get forgotten amongst adults. And that's what happened around most of the time of her life. She would be around the folks that were her grandma's age. And she was so quiet, they would say the things they would normally not say around children. So it's probably why she learned so quickly that folk talk about folk. That's what they do. But what she didn't learn was that they talk about folk behind closed doors, not spreading it around to everybody else. Well, harm will come to you. She didn't learn that. It's at a young age, even while she was in school, well, she would talk. She was known for her wonderments. You know, I wonder why she always goes down over to that man's house. Might be something going on. She was known for her thinkings and for belief. I believe the way I see things are that the two of them are trying to come together into something and troubles are brewing. And she was known for, well, downright outrageous uncertainties. I wasn't standing there, but I know that the preacher's wife was smoking behind the church with two of the fellas working on the building. Here she was at 15, taller than everyone else, quiet, seeming to disappear into the walls. But her words went around. And it was that last bit of outrageous uncertainty that got the eye of more than she expected. She passed that uncertainty around from person to person until it was flying by itself, until it flew into the ears of the deacons and the elders, and they called upon the preacher, sat him down and asked him, well, what is your wife doing? And how is she supposed to be a respectable woman smoking them cigarettes and then behind the church with those men that are working on the church? The preacher was furious. When they demanded to speak to his wife, he told them absolutely not. My wife does not smoke. She is not into philandering of any sort. And how dare you bring this up? Who told you this? Well, the deacons and the elders were used to preachers kind of listening to him, but this newfangled kind of preacher seemed to have his own way. They shuffled around a bit and moved their heads, and then somebody said they heard it from somebody who said they heard it from somebody who said they heard it from somebody who heard it from Pat Pat. And that's why he went to go visit Pat Pat's grandmother. She worked hard. Sometimes she would do 2 jobs in one day, driving the bus and such, but also working inside folks or doing some odd jobs around. So she was always weary, always tired. When the preacher came over and said what he said, and that this had come out of Pat Pat's mouth, all she could do was lower her shoulders and her head and say she was sorry. She knew in the back of the mind, it was Pat Pat. She hadn't done enough making sure to watch over her, making sure to listen to her. She was such a good girl, and she didn't really take time to know her. She promised the preacher she would handle all the things. The preacher got up with barely a word of goodbye and walked out the door. And just as Pat Pat was coming home from school, Pat Pat smiled when she saw the preacher. "Day, sir. It's good to see you, sir." He looked at her, frowned, rolled his eyes, and walked on. She'd learned a long time ago from the old folk, though, that if folks do things like that, they're just having a day. You just keep smiling and say, "Bless his heart." And so that's what she did. When she came into the door, which walked into the kitchen, there was a grandmother sitting in the chair. "Pat Pat, girl, go upstairs and get me one of them pillowcases." "Yes, ma'am." Up she went, took one of the pillowcases out of the linen closet, brought it down to Grandmama. "Yes, ma'am. You want me to do anything?" "Pat Pat, take this pillowcase outside and go on in there with the geese and the ducks and get me some. I need to make some feathers. I need some feathers for some making of some pillows and such." "Yes, ma'am." And so she took a tall body out. She liked being around the geese and the ducks. She could talk to them and tell them anything. And she kept up a steady stream of what she talked about. Now, you do know that Billy Boy, well, he is that kind of man. I've been watching him. He's the kind of man that you don't want to be nowhere around because he's one of those men's got tattoos on him. Oh, I haven't seen him and such, but I know he got him on him because I done heard. And did you hear about Mary Jane? Oh, Mary Jane, I think she in the way. I overheard she say that, well, she didn't have a time of the month coming, and we all know what she been doing late at night. She talked to the geese as if they were women, if they were folks her age or older. And of course, the geese didn't say nothing as she got some of them and took off some of the feathers and collected feathers from the ground and filled that bag up. But this was the first time the grandmother had really listened to what her good granddaughter was really saying. When Pat Pat was done, it took her near to 45 minutes or so. She came back in with a smile, ready to go and give this to Grandmama and go on and get her work done for school the next day. And that be all you want, Grandmama? Grandmama said, "Welcome, me child." And they went out on the back porch. Pat Pat didn't know what was happening, but, well, old folks always got old ways. And she watched. So Grandmama took that pillowcase and then, well, flew it up in the air and then shook it all out. Shook it all out. Just as the wind started to blow. Grandmama, what are you, what? Grandmama made sure that all the feathers was gone. She tucked up that pillowcase and said, and handed it over to Pat Pat. "Child, go and collect all them feathers. Come back to me." "Grandmama, I can't." "Child." "Yes, ma'am." Her 15-year-old mind could not wrap around what this woman was telling her. All she knew was she had to be obedient. She'd always been that way in her lifetime, and so she would be again. And she went around trying to collect all the feathers. And as she tried to collect all the feathers, her mouth was silent. She was quiet as she did, because now tears began to come to her eyes. How could she possibly collect it all? And she was out there, and she didn't know how long it would take. And the sun began to come down, and the tears began to come out of her. How would she collect all of this? And her grandmama had not called her inside. What would she do? And when it became dark, Grandmama turned on the back light. Pat Pat took that as a sign and came up, and the face was tear-streaked, and there were feathers on her hands and around her head. She handed a bag that wasn't hardly even full. "Grandmama, why did you have me do such a thing?" "Did you collect all the feathers?" "You know I couldn't collect them all. Why you treat me so ill? Why?" "Child, you know a tongue is like them feathers. Something go out, can never pull it back in again where it go to. You understand me, child?" "Yes'm. Yes'm. I'll go apologize to the preacher and his wife tomorrow. I understand." Pat Pat was always the tallest in the class. She was a slender girl, almost skinny. And had it not been for some feathers, well, her mouth would have been what would have been her life. But instead, feathers showed her the tongue and its power. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila Arnold. I'm going to have to pay attention to my feather pillow from now on. I think we all do, and we'll bless his heart, they said. Thank you so much for being with us again, and we look forward to next year, and hopefully we can all be in person again so we can sit in your story circle and learn. Thank you so much. Our next performer comes to us from nearby, and she has been holding forth for a number of years now with Common Ground on the Hill, playing her incredibly beautiful harp music. And she's joined tonight, of course, as most always, her husband Wayne, and there they are.
Hi.
nearby New Windsor. Joe has a number of recordings under her belt, and she heads up our harp program. She's brought so many wonderful harpers from around the world to Common Ground over the past 20 years at least now. So you can come to Common Ground on the Hill and learn all kinds of harping, from Paraguayan to Irish to Scottish to, well, sky's the limit. But thank you, Joe and Wayne. Make welcome with our closing act for Thursday night here, Joe and Wayne Morrison Poetry.
Thank you, Walt. It's always a pleasure to be a part of Common Ground. We're thrilled to be here and honored to be in the last spot. We're going to play you a Turlough O'Carolan piece, blind harper from Ireland, called Clergy's Lamentation. And it's been in my repertoire a long time, but only fairly recently for both of us. over just a little bit. And now I'm going to play for you. Now I'm going to play for you a tune that I wrote. I wrote this last fall when a good friend of mine, a harping friend, sent out a letter to some of her closest friends. She'd been battling lymphoma for years, and she wrote and said she's giving up the fight. And it was a heartbreaking thing to hear, but she put it so eloquently and so beautifully and so kindly that I had the experience of going through all the stages of grief in about 5 minutes, reading her letter, telling us how important we all were to her and how much of a difference we made in her life. And all I could think was how much of a difference she made in all of our lives. Because she was the sort of person that you could talk to for just a few minutes, very first time you've ever talked to her, and she'd figure out something really special about yourself, and she'd tell you what it was. And it was enlightening, and it was gratifying, and it was amazing. And she did it for everyone. And so when I went outside and did some yard work right after getting this message, this tune just appeared in my head. And so I called it Celia's Blessing, her blessing to me. Wrote this in honor of Celia Feinstone. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be here at Common Ground.
Thank you so much, Joe, and what a wonderful tribute to your friend. And as you were playing, I was thinking that's so much of what the music and the story and the art is all about here. Gracing our lives and allowing us to be communicating with one another and gifting one another through this journey we call life. What a blessing to have that skill, that ability to be able to do that for others. It's been a wonderful evening, and it's we just have one more night of Common Ground on the Hill and one more day of classes, and it's been quite a run, and so many people have made this happen, including, of course, the wonderful staff of Maria Wong and Matt Vinson, and of course Linda Van Hart in the art department, and Pam Zappardino working with our teachers, Winnie Dreher, all the volunteers. It's just a long list, and we are indeed grateful. We're all bozos on this bus together, and it takes everybody's work. So stay tuned for tomorrow evening. We're gonna have a wonderful concert. Some of the music coming from Scotland itself, and be sure to attend classes. Come to tomorrow's Search for Common Ground class at 4 o'clock, where Maria Wong will be giving an amazing program. It will give you more of an insight into who Maria Wong is and who her family are. We had a great night. We thank you all for tuning in, and share on social media, and we'll see you tomorrow.